is Jake Johnson here, and you're watching Everything Wrong with Genesis, coming to you live from the internet. How's everybody doing today? See, we got anybody here? Oh, we got a couple people here. Hello, couple people. Well, we got some stuff in store for you today. I'm going to put on the gloves, and I'm going to send that atheist back reeling on his heels. Tell him how it is. Set the record straight and all that. One for me, which is one for God. About out of coffee. That's not good. Oh, what a beautiful day it's been. Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me now? Lost one. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. I guess they didn't want to hang out long enough. See what was up. That's all right with me. Just kind of shoot the breeze until everybody rolls in. They know I'm here. I've been here every Sunday. 8 o'clock sharp. Ready to rock and roll. And you've been here too. It's a beautiful relationship we have. I show up, you show up, we talk. It's wonderful. All is well in the neighborhood. We got some videos to go through. We got 3 of them today. Might go through 2 of them. Who knows? We'll see. It depends on how long they are. I'm tired. I've been cutting grass all day and working in that house. Trying to get ready to move back in. A lot of work to do. I've been away from home for 2 years. 2 years of sitting and waiting. Cleaning and carrying on, replacing. But it's not an undoable prospect. Just have to do it. Have to have the energy to do it. And I'm an old man. I ain't as spry as I used to be. I find myself sitting down a lot more than I used to. Take a break. Take a load off. Whew. When I was 18, I'd bounce off the walls from daylight till dark and then on into dark and sleep for 4 hours and get up and do it again. Ba 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 ba. All day, all night. Never stopped. Then I hit 40. And all that changed. Then I realized, hey, I need to take a nap. First time I ever took a nap in my life. I don't even think I took a nap when I was a baby. I think I was pretty much go all the time. But as you has it, when you get older, you start slowing down. We're back up to 2, all right. The Lord taketh and he giveth back. And the older you get, the more slower you become, and pretty soon you start realizing you're not as young as you used to be. I think all of us go through that, though. I don't think it's a unique to me kind of situation. All right. I'm going to play my theme song one more time and go get me a cup of coffee. You guys hang tough and listen to this, and I'll be right back. just in time. Just in time. Didn't take too long either. Nice, fresh, full cup of coffee. That's Kung Fu in action. All right. Just waiting for the first chatters to show up so I can start the show. So if you're here and you got your ears on, say hello and I'll get started. That's a good cup of coffee. Rushed cup of coffee. Best cup of coffee there is. I didn't think I was going to make it. And I started hearing it wrapping up. And I was like, oh, I got to stir. But we did it. We're good. La-di-di-da-da-da-da-da. All right.
Check.
Ready to roll whenever you are. Hello, everybody. Hey, Darlene. I did not expect to see you. I'm glad you're here. How are you doing? You're looking blue as always. Like a big blue D in a circle. I'm glad to see you up and paying attention. I know you're in a lot of pain, though. All right. Just checking in for a little while. Don't know if I can hang. I understand entirely. You do what you feel you need to do, and you got my blessings and prayers. And I hope you can hang, but if you can't, you can't. I do understand. Getting better every day, that's good. Have you got up and walked around any? Been able to do any moving? Or are you just pretty much laying there dreading the breathing? I know it took about 2 weeks before my dad got back on his feet when he had his. Short walks? Well, that's good. The hope is that in no time you'll start feeling energy like you haven't had since you were in your 20s. I don't know if it'll work out that way or not, but it did for my dad, so maybe it will for you too. Anyway, I'm definitely glad to have you here. Yeah, I know it definitely gets you down. It makes you feel like crap. I hope so too. I hope the next time I see you, you'll be ready to fight. Or dance or something. Hey, April. Glad to see you here. I've been out at the house working all day today, so I'm a little tired myself. Cutting grass and trying to get everything ready for the inspector to come tomorrow and tell me whether or not I can get my lights turned back on. And the hot water heater burst at some point, and there's water all over the floor, and it's dried now, but the floor is all caving in, so I'm going to have to replace the floor in the kitchen and the living room. Just when it rains, it pours. Hopefully the inspector won't hold that against me. I have to have power to work on it, so we'll have to see. But that's how my day has gone. Cut 2 acres of land with a push mower with grass up to my knees. And then started the cleaning process, which I'll start and get finished tomorrow. Yep, it's always something. But I'm making the effort anyway. I'm trying to get back in the house. This time, At least I know when I get back in there, I have brand new floors to stand on. I reckon what I'm going to do is just make me a little apartment there in the back and use the back bathroom, put my coffee pot and all back there, and just work one room at a time until I get it done. She's tough. Hey, Mama, I was going to come your way, but I'm not feeling up good. My stomach and my Mother Nature, and I just wanted to know, I wanted you to know I love you. Wow. I'm proud of you too, April. Handle that, Mother Nature. But anyway, I also got a job 1 to 3 days a week running a bread truck. So I'll be delivering bread. I'm supposed to find out Monday when I'm supposed to start training for that. That'll be a good cushy job. Lots of driving, a little bit of lifting. Yeah, I hope everybody feels better. Like everybody's down today. It's a down kind of day. Yeah, I'm working on it. I don't think I'm going to start until the first of the year, though. I don't think it's something he wants to get going until then, but it's something that's in my future anyway. Be able to pay my bills and such. I'm going to need everything I can get to get that damn floor replaced, though. I have no idea how much that's going to cost, but it can't be cheap. I got to redo the carpet and everything. So I might need to get 3 jobs. That's all right. I can handle it. All right, let's get some atheists going here. See what the man's got to say today.
Genesis 29. Jacob is about to get punished real badly for marrying the wrong woman. All because of what I imagine was a drunk one-night stand. Then Jacob continued on his journey and came to the land of the eastern peoples. There, he saw a well in the open country, with 3 flocks of sheep lying near it, because the flocks were watered from that well. The stone over the mouth of the well was large. When all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone away from the well's mouth and water the sheep. Then they would return the stone to its place over the mouth of the well.
Yeah, it sounds kind of allegorious of another shepherd we know about that rolls a stone away in 3 days. See, God's always thinking. He's always foreshadowing what's to come.
Oh, so that's how wells work. You take off the lid, get water, and replace the lid. I am learning so much from the Bible.
Like you knew that, asshole. You ain't never got a drink of water that didn't come from a tap or a bottle. Come on.
It truly is an instruction book for life. Jacob asked the shepherds, "My brothers, where are you from?" "We're from Haran," they replied. He said to them, "Do you know Laban, Nahor's grandson?" "Yes, we know him," they answered. Then Jacob asked them, "Is he well?" "Yes, he is," they said. "And here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep." Oh, it's a biblical woman with a name. She must be important.
Yeah, that's how names work. In stories, you tell the story of the person you're telling. You seem to have a real problem with this. It's not a Reader's Digest. It's a story about a family. There's lots of people in the world that don't have names in this story because they're not in the story.
And the shepherds were from Haran, which means they're Abraham's people. This has "new wife" written all over it. "Look," he said, "the sun is still high. It is not time for the flocks to be gathered. Water the sheep and take them back to pasture." "We can't," they replied, "until all the flocks are gathered and the stone has been rolled away from the mouth of the well. Then we will water the sheep." The shepherds act like they can't roll away the stone themselves until every sheep is there.
They can't, because this is a ritual that is perpetuated throughout the ages. It's a allegory. It's symbolical of what's to come, you see. Abraham laid out the rules. It's his well. If he doesn't want the water to come out until all the sheep are there, then you follow the rules. No, you can't touch someone else's well and take their water without their permission until they give you the permission to do so. Not a problem here.
It's okay. It's water. Nothing will happen if you let the sheep drink a few minutes early. While he was still talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherd. When Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of his uncle Laban, and Laban's sheep, he went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. He had told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and a son of Rebekah, so she ran and told her father. "Jesus, Jacob! Not okay!"
Apparently it is okay. They end up getting married.
Ask for some damn permission. That is not
What's happening, brother? Good to see you.
how you greet your cousin. Or anyone. I mean, at least say hi. Tell her your name, anything. And why the crying? Was the kiss that bad?
Never saw somebody you fell in love with instantly, I'm guessing. It's tears of joy. You know, not all men are not in touch with their emotional side. Jacob clearly is.
As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him. He embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his home. And
now you see, you assumed that he kissed her on the mouth with tongues. A kiss in those days is a way of greeting someone, especially someone you're fond of. It's not unusual at all. You're the one that made it weird, so you're the one that's a pervert.
there Jacob told him all these things. Then Laban said to him, "You are my own flesh and blood." After Jacob had stayed with him for a whole month, Laban said to him, "Just because you're a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." Oh, so everyone's just kissing their relatives now. Not weird at all. I have never had anyone surprise visit me, then stay for a month.
You probably don't have anybody that loves you like that either, or depends on you like that. Maybe you should look into that.
That sounds horrible. At least Jacob gets to choose his own salary. How much do you think he'll work for? $15 an hour? A six-figure salary? Oh no, he's thinking something very different. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel.
Now you see, you can learn something here, buddy. This is called bartering. This is a negotiation tactic. You see, the man who wants the employer to do the work asks him, "What is your fee? What will it cost me to have you work for me?" That puts the ball in his court. So then he can say, "Well, I want so-and-so," or "I need so-and-so," or "Are you willing to go so-and-so?" It's called a negotiation. And then he'll come back with, "Well, I can go so-and-so, but so-and-so," or "I'm not really comfortable with so-and-so. How about so-and-so?" You see, it's called a negotiation. And then when the 2 men come to an arrangement, then it's set in stone. This is the way of the world. It's a shame we don't work like that anymore.
Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, "I'll work for you 7 years in return for your younger daughter, Rachel." "Ha-ha! You thought I was going to ask for money? Never. Just give me my smoking hot cousin's uterus and I am all yours for 7 years.
That sounds like a fair trade, wouldn't you think? I mean, if she ain't worth at least 7 years, she ain't much of a woman. I'm just saying.
That's just dumb negotiating. He was being paid nothing and Laban said, "Name your price." He could have said, pay me a few bucks and one of your daughters and I'll stick around for 2 weeks.
Or maybe he thought that she was worth it. Has that ever crossed your mind? Maybe he valued her so much that he would give 7 years of his labor just to hold her hand, to have it in marriage. That's a pretty good dude.
Why 7 years? And remember, this is Jacob. Esau is technically his servant now. Jacob could have said, my hairy brother will work for you as long as you want. Give me the girl. I'm out.
Yeah, he could have said that, but he didn't. This is called character. Something you know very little about, I'm sure. But character is what makes a man a man. And when you have a man that has good character, he's worth holding on to, as you'll soon find out.
He didn't do that. Laban said, it's better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay here with me. So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. Aww, Rachel totally wrote that last line, didn't she? And sure, Laban, stick with the inbreeding. That is the biblical way to go. Then,
well, it is at that time, yes, because it's very important to keep the tribes in a linear fashion. Because without knowing where you come from, you don't know where the inheritance goes. So at that time in this world, yes, you could marry your cousins. Now, here's a shock that you may or may not know. You can marry your cousins today, and it's perfectly legal. As long as it's not your first cousin, you're more than welcome to marry into your own family. And the royal family does it quite often. That's how they stay in power. Because when they marry a bloodline, and then the wealth is passed laterally through the family. And it gains in wealth because they marry people who are already wealthy, and it builds their wealth, which is why they're the royal family. They've been doing that since Jacob, by the way. You know, where he laid his head down on that rock and went to sleep, and then had a dream about the angels coming to and fro from heaven. That rock, all European kings have been coronated on that rock since that time. It right now resides in Westminster Abbey underneath the Queen's throne. It's called the Stone of Scone, or the Coronation Stone. It lived for a little while in Scotland, and now it's back in England. But all kings have been coronated on that stone for that reason. And all of them have been related, which is why they have some weird features.
Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife. My time is completed, and I want to make love to her. Some men ask a woman's father for her hand in marriage. This guy demands the father hand over his daughter because it's been 7 years and he is horny.
How long do you think he should have to wait for that ass? I mean, it's a sweet ass, and he's been waiting for 7 years. I imagine he's about ready to burst.
As hell. I planted your seeds, now I'd like to plant my own seeds. I plowed the field, now I would like to plow your daughter.
We get it, move on.
I hoed the garden, now give me my... I guess Rachel's opinion is irrelevant here. So Laban brought together all the people of the place and gave a feast. But when evening came, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob. And
now here comes the trickery. You see, Jacob is one hell of a hand, and Rachel's dad does not want, Rebecca's dad does not want to let go of him right yet because he's making him a lot of money. So he's going to play a little fast one on him and cause him to work 7 more years. Unfortunately, Jacob is about to burst and does not take the time to realize what he's doing. He moves so swiftly that he makes a mistake.
Jacob made love to her, and Laban gave his servant Zilpah to his daughter as her attendant. Wait, Leah?
Yep.
Why Leah? That's a weird bait and switch.
Yep.
Was everyone drunk at this party? How did Jacob not notice?
because he had never been with his wife. He didn't know what she felt like. And she was probably veiled, and he probably went into the bedchambers at night in the dark and did his business, and she probably said her name was Rebecca because her father instructed her to, and she probably had a bit of a crush on Jacob too. This may come as a shock to you, but women in those days wanted to marry men of power. They wanted to be betrothed to a good man. So when their father picked wisely, they were very happy about it. It was not like you try to paint it like some kind of insubordinate torture or punishment. Women wanted a good man. That's how they would prosper.
And then, for no reason, Laban just hands Leah a new slave, which I guess is the least he can do. He's already giving up her body to another guy, so I guess he owes her another body? When morning came...
Well, you see, now that he's slept with Leah, unbeknownst to him, now he can't marry Rebecca because he's already spread his skirt over Leah, so he has to marry her. And he didn't want that, but that's how it worked out.
There was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I?"
I did say Rebecca, I meant Rachel. I'm sorry, I get those two confused in my mind. But you knew who I was talking about.
Why have you deceived me? Laban replied, "It is not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. Finish this daughter's bridal week. Then we will give you the younger one also, in return for another 7 years of work."
Now you see, Jacob did not want 2 wives. He wanted one, the one he was in love with. The father pulled a fast one because Jacob made him a lot of money. And Jacob has been honorable to this point. He's kept his word and he's worked hard for this man. He didn't take advantage of him. He didn't overcharge him or anything like that. He did what he promised he would do. But the father pulled a fast one on him. Now, he's got his morals. He's got this godly moral about him. So he's not going to betray the woman he just slept with. He will be honorable and marry her. And it turns out she gets pregnant anyway. But he still loves Rachel. And he wants her. And she wants him. But them being the daughter, they have to listen to their father, and he makes the decisions in the household. So whether it's right or wrong, this is how it's going to go. And of course, Jacob is going to agree to work 7 more years because he loves Rachel. It doesn't matter if it's 14 or 20 years. He'll do it. But not to be undone, this time around, Jacob is going to pull a fast one on the dad, and he's well deserving to do so. And he's going to end up being rich and have both of his daughters.
Laban, you wicked son of a bitch. You could have said something about the local custom 7 years ago, but you didn't. He tricked Jacob into screwing and now marrying his older daughter, whom he couldn't get rid of, knowing full well Jacob wasn't interested. And now Jacob has to finish the honeymoon if he wants a crack at Rachel on top of another 7 years of work. I would say that's a bad father-in-law, but they're already related, so I don't think that title applies.
It applies. Now, Laban got rid of a daughter that nobody wanted because she was too old. He managed to get her married, and now he's going to get 14 years of labor from Jacob for the younger daughter, whom she will marry him also. So in Laban's eyes at this moment, he's doing a good thing for his business and his family. Not going to work out that way, though. Watch and see.
And Jacob did so. He finished the week with Leah, and then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her attendant. Jacob made love to Rachel also, and his love for Rachel was greater than his love for Leah. And he worked for Laban another 7 years.
Well, yeah, because he didn't love Leah in the first place. He loved Rachel. He wanted to marry Rachel. They both know this. Leah and Rachel both know this. So the fact that he loves Rachel more is not abnormal. He loved her in the first place. It wasn't their doing. It was their father Laban's doing. So they live with it. They don't like it, but they gotta live with it.
He finished the week with Leah.
Yeah.
You're not who I wanted, but my pants are already down to my ankles, so we might as well finish.
Well, it isn't exactly like that, but yeah. He gets her pregnant, and then he marries Rachel also. But he still has to work 7 more years. But watch what he does with that 7 years. Very impressive thinking.
And then he jumps to the top of the bunk bed and does the same thing to the other daughter. And everyone is apparently fine with all of this.
It's funny how you turn every normal thing into a perverted thing, but then you assume that they're sleeping in bunk beds. Nah, bruh. They're all 3 in the same bed. That's how wifing works.
It gives a whole new meaning to the term sister wives. So he got 2 wives and 2 servants who will become very important very soon.
Yes, they will.
Can you guess why? Take a guess.
Babies.
Look at how the Bible just totally trashes Leah. She's the shrew no one wanted. She's the sacrifice you had to endure to get to the younger daughter.
Well, unfortunately, that's how it worked, and she was probably fat, too. I'm just saying.
By the way, Jacob loved the younger, prettier daughter more. Got it, Leah? We've already seen what happens when a mother has a favorite child. Now we're about to see what happens when a husband loves one of his wives more than the other. Look at all this from Laban's perspective too. Sometimes on a busy day, I will close 10 browser windows in Chrome and it feels incredible. This guy just got rid of 4 women in his family like that. And he got 14 years of hard labor out of it. He must be so relieved.
Well, he is right now. He thinks he's outsmarted Jacob. What he doesn't know is that Jacob can count better than he can. Watch and see what Jacob does with that next 7 years.
When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he enabled her to conceive. But Rachel remained childless. Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said, "It is because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me now." Oh, the dynamics here just went from bad to worse. Now there's a baby involved in this love triangle, and Leah thinks the child will lure Jacob's heart away from Rachel?
I don't know how you think that 4 people and a man makes a triangle. It's more like a dodecahedron. However, Leah knew that Jacob didn't love her when she married him, when she got in bed with him. So this is kind of misplaced jealousy. Yes, she wishes he would love her. Yes, she wants to be a good wife and produce children for him, and she wants him to love them. But she knew already that he didn't. So this is like asking for something you know you can't have. And it will work out that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, because babies always make dysfunctional relationships better. I know love and sex are not the same thing, but how unloved could Leah be given that Jacob is impregnating her? Unless he did it only once. She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "Because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one too."
Now, in the Bible, when talking about birthing, and if it's in the same sentence as the first birth, when you see this word conceived again, that means that she continued to bear another child. These 2 children are twins. So that's how you know. It doesn't always say that, but when it does say that, that's what they're talking about. It said the exact same thing when Cain and Abel were born. They were also twins. Only they were paternal twins. They had the same mother but 2 different fathers.
So she named him Simeon. Oh no, another one. Jacob, use some contraception or else you're gonna have a 3rd kid with a wife you don't even like.
Why would he use contraception when having children is the goal? That's why you get married, to have children. This world that we live in now tries to paint marriage as a separate thing to family. But it's not. It never has been. That's the intent. That's the reason it's a contract, a business deal. When you marry someone, it's a business deal because you're building a family, and children is the goal.
Again she conceived, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "Now at last my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons." So he was named Levi. You know, if it didn't work with kid 1, and it didn't work with kid 2, maybe take the hint. That is a lot of college tuition payments right there. Is it possible the Bible got this wrong and Jacob just preferred Leah? It seems like he has no problem sleeping with her. At least Leah is done having kids.
She is his wife, so that would be her function, is to have children. They did not look at it the same way you and I look at it today. It's not wrong to sleep with your wife and to have children. That makes the family more prosperous.
She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "This time I will praise the Lord." So she named him Judah. Then she stopped having children. Well, Jacob's never leaving her now because those child support payments would be insane.
They didn't have child support payments in those days. You either took care of your family or you sent them off to be taken care of somewhere else.
After 14 years of labor, Jacob now has 2 wives, one of whom he allegedly doesn't love even though he can't stop sleeping with her, and 4 kids with that woman he never wanted to marry.
And the Bible does not say that he does not love her. He says that he loves Rachel more. He loves them both. They're both his wives. But he loved Rachel to start with, and then the fast one was pulled on him, so he found a way to love his first wife. It's not what he wanted, but he's making do. And he did love her. He just didn't love her as much as he loved the one he wanted.
I'll bet that makes him Jacob sadder. That was dumb. I'm sorry. I'll just end this now.
Okay.
Genesis 30. The baby wars are finally upon us. And you thought your own sibling rivalry was bad? Also, you're about to see the most incorrect genetics experiment ever. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, she became jealous of her sister. So she said to Jacob, "Give me children or I'll die." Oh, so we're doing the emotional manipulation thing.
Yes, because Rachel was a bit of a bitch.
Very early here. According to the previous chapter, though, it's not like they're not trying. Rachel literally cannot have kids.
Right.
So what's up with the threat here?
Probably because she doesn't know she can't have kids. I imagine they don't have a doctor on every corner to tell them they're barren. They're trying, and she's wanting to get pregnant. It just isn't working. So she's probably blaming Jacob. She probably thinks that his seed is weak because he's given it all to the other wife, which is the reason for the jealousy.
I need you to fix my reproductive system right now, or else you really won't have a 5th child. Jacob became angry with her and said, "Am I in the place of God who has kept you from having children?" Thank you. He gets it. Don't blame him, blame God. Then she said, "Here is Bilhah, my servant. Sleep with her so that she can bear children for me."
Who told Jacob to sleep with Bilhah? Rachel did.
"And I too can build a family through her." Well, that threat took a strange turn. If you don't sleep with another woman right now, I will be so mad at you. Just a totally typical marital spat. Is Bill...
Actually, this happened quite often in those types of marriages where you have concubines and you have more than one wife. A lot of times the maidservant would stand in for the wife and bear the child, and then the wife would raise the child as her own. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's how they did things in those days. And they did. Lots of times.
Bilhah cool with this? I mean, we're never told, but I'm guessing she's not allowed to say no. So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife. Jacob slept with her, and she became pregnant and bore him a son.
Well, did she have a say in the matter? She was a servant, and Rachel gave her to him, which means no, she did not have a say in the matter. She is property of Rachel. Rachel gave her to Jacob, which makes her property of Jacob. You see? It's just like if I give you an apple, it's your apple. You can eat it if you want to. Blah, 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 blah.
Then Rachel said, God has vindicated me. He has listened to my plea and given me a son. Because of this, she named him Dan. That was another Bible passage describing rape.
It was not rape, it was consensual, because this is the nature of servitude. You understand that handmaidens choose to be handmaidens so that they can help more wealthy women in their lives. It's a position in a big family. If you go to any rich family now, you notice those guys that are wearing the tuxedos. They're called butlers. They're also in servitude. They also choose to do that job. So, it's not rape. One thing I would like to point out, you'll notice that Dan does not have very many descendants. One that I can think of. His family tree is very short. Dan did not have very many offspring. He was not very blessed by God because of this union. I'm just saying.
I just want to point that out. And Rachel doesn't get to say, God's given me a son. That kid is not her son.
Yes, he is, because that kid came from her servant and was given to her to raise as her own, as is the custom in those days.
There's no formal adoption going on. Really, this is just a kidnapping. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, I have had a great struggle with my sister and I have won. So she named him Naphtali. Wait, Jacob is still sleeping with the servant?
Well, he's she's his, so yeah. What do you think they're doing?
Is this not news to anyone? And why does Rachel think she's won? She's kidnapped 2 kids. Leah has 4. I mean, I know the Bible isn't a science book, but apparently it's not a math book either.
It's not a science book or a math book. It's a history book, and it is reporting that she's being vitriolic. She's being hyperbolic. She has an overinflated ego. Not unusual among women.
When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, What good fortune! So she named him Gad. Oh, so this is just a harem now.
Yes. That's what they call those. Where you have more than one concubine is a harem. Most men of that era had a harem. Why do you find that so odd? Aren't you from that part of the world? Chances are you came from one of those unions.
Women throwing other women at Jacob, against those women's will, as far as we know.
No, as far as we know, not, because none of that is ever mentioned in any part of the Bible, or in any other book for that matter. As far as I know, when you go into servitude, you do it willingly. That means that everything that comes with that, they know the game. They're used to playing it.
Then taking credit for the children they conceive, Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. Then Leah said, How happy I am! The women will call me happy. So
I got a question for you, and this is a bad example, but it is kind of the way they thought about things in those days. So don't think that I think this way. I'm just reporting how people were. If you had a dog, and that dog had puppies, say it slept with a random dog in the neighborhood and had puppies, would you consider those puppies yours or the dog in the neighborhoods? Or maybe their owner? Or would they be your puppies? You're the one that's going to have to sell them or feed them, so they're your puppies. Well, concubines work the same way. If you have a concubine and that concubine has a child, that's your child. You see how that works?
She named him Asher. If you're keeping score, and you should because there's nothing else to do. Rachel has 2 kids who are not hers. Leah has 4 biological kids, and another 2 who are not. And Jacob has 8 kids, 4 wives, no money, and I assume a very broken penis. During wheat harvest, Reuben went out into the fields and
I don't know, some men would be bragging about that.
found some mandrake plants, which he brought to his mother Leah. Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." "Damn it, Rachel, stop taking things that aren't yours." But she said to her, "Wasn't it enough that you took away my husband? Will you take my son's mandrakes too?" "Very well," Rachel said. "He can sleep with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes." "Yeah, Leah, go get her." Also, what?
This is called women being catty. Anytime you have too many hens in the hen house, they start pecking at each other. This is true through the ages. It's true now. That's just the nature of women.
Fine, sleep with him tonight, but I get a plant in return? Mandrakes are generally considered aphrodisiacs, so I guess it's not just any plant. But still, we know where this story is going. The trade-off here went from sleep with my husband and I'm taking your kid to sleep with my husband and I'm taking your plant. The husband seems to be worth a lot less these days. So when Jacob came in from the fields that evening, Leah went out to meet him. "You must sleep with me," she said. "I have hired you with my son's mandrakes." So he slept with her that night. She bought his penis for the night with a plant, and he doesn't even ask questions. He's like, "Wait, what?"
Well, fair is fair. If she did pay for it, what are you gonna do?
"Okay, but let me at least take a shower first." God listened to Leah, and she became pregnant and bore Jacob a 5th son. Then Leah said, "God has rewarded me for giving my servant to my husband." So she named him Issachar. "Jacob, you moron! This is a trap! You are 9 kids deep and you still haven't figured this out? Stop while you're ahead."
Why? Jacob is the father of many nations because of this union, as promised to Abraham. All these nations belong to him. They're from his seed. Do you not understand how populating the world works? You got to do the nasty to get the positivity.
Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a 6th son. Then Leah said, "God has presented me with a precious gift. This time my husband will treat me with honor because I have borne him 6 sons." So she named him Zebulun. If he's not treating you with honor before baby 1, it's not gonna happen after baby 6.
Just because she's wishing for it doesn't mean that she doesn't already have it. You know, a lot of times people want things that they don't know they already have. You know, the grass is greener on the other side and all that. And then they realize that it was plenty green right where they were to start with, and they caused themselves a lot of undue stress because of wishing for something they thought they didn't have, but turned out to have it all along. This is classic morality tale here.
Technically baby 10 for him. Sometime later, she gave birth to a daughter and named her Dinah.
Oh, look, there's a female name. Part of the story, even.
Oh, now we're not even doing foreplay, just here, one more. It's a girl, baby 11. Though since it's the Bible, it's really more like 10.5. But
It's funny that you didn't mention her at all. You only mention that you have a problem when they don't get named.
she has a name. You know what that means. She must be important.
Right.
Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and enabled her to conceive. Wait, God forgot about someone who is literally in this chapter?
No, remembering someone is calling them to mind. He didn't forget she existed. He just had occupations in other places. Probably because he knows more than we do, and he's setting up a nation. You understand? He probably understands the future more so than we do. He's outside of time, space, and matter. We're inside of it. so we can only see what's in front of us. He can see all of it, which means he probably did exactly right for everybody involved, and their human impatience is what caused all the grief.
Just a few verses ago, and he made her unbarren? Jesus Christ. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son, and said, God has taken away my disgrace. She named him Joseph, and said, may the Lord add to me another son. Hey, Joseph! We're finally in the musical section of the Bible. You know what's really sad? There still aren't enough babies for a TLC reality show yet. After Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, send me on my way so I can go back to my own homeland. Give me my wives and children for whom I have served you, and I will be on my way. You know how much work I've done for you. Oh, buddy, we all know how much work you've done. He has so many kids, he needs his own nation now.
Yes, he does. Just like God promised him he would have. Well, turns out that Laban doesn't really want to let him go because he's a good hand, and he's a good husband to his children, and he's got his whole family right there close to him. So he doesn't really want this to happen. It's going to happen, though, and it's going to happen in a way that Laban doesn't see coming.
But Laban said to him, if I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. He added, name your wages, and I will pay them. This again? Last time Jacob got to pick his wages, he asked for a wife and got screwed over. How about asking for something more tangible this time?
He will. And by the way, he already has caught on to Laban's game, and Laban is going to play on his sympathies several times, begging him to stay, trying to talk him into or tricking him into staying longer. But Jacob has a plan, and that plan is going to work in his favor.
Childcare, college tuition, free diapers. Jacob said to him, you know how I have worked for you and how your livestock has fared under my care. The little you had before I came has increased greatly, and the Lord has blessed you wherever I've been. But now, when may I do something for my own household?
So you see, Jacob is fully aware of what Laban has done. And because Jacob is such a good hand and such a good farmer and a good shepherd, his livestock has increased manyfold. And Laban has become a very rich man because of Jacob's labors. Jacob is aware of this, and so is Laban. Laban doesn't want to let go of the golden goose, but Jacob wants to forge ahead and make his own life, which is fair. And because it's fair, it will happen.
Why didn't we have this negotiation like 14 years and an egg carton full of babies ago? But you know Jacob's not going away quietly. He's gonna pull some sort of trick. What shall I give you? He asked. Don't give me anything, Jacob replied. But if you will do this one thing for me, I will go on tending your flocks and watching over them. Let me go through all your flocks today and remove from them every speckled or spotted sheep, every dark-colored lamb, and every spotted or speckled goat. They will be my wages. And my honesty will testify for me in the future whenever you check on the wages you have paid me. Any goat in my possession that is not speckled or spotted, or any lamb that is not dark-colored, will be considered stolen.
All right, you see, this is a play, because at the moment, Laban does not have very many spotted or speckled goats. He only has a couple. But Jacob is a good farmer, and he understands how goats work. He understands what gets them in the mood. He understands when they mate. He understands their cycles. He's a good farmer. And so he's telling Laban, just let me have the speckled ones, which you don't have very many to start with, so it won't be very much on you. But in the future, and he sets it up right now, in the future, if you have any question about what I've done, look at my livestock and you'll see that I've kept my word, that I only took the speckled ones, and if you find one that isn't speckled, you can say I stole it, and I'll have to pay a stolen ransom for it, which there's a number for that. I forget what it is right now, but in the law, there's a price to pay for stealing an animal, or depending on how many animals you steal. There's a set price to pay, which would benefit Laban if he was found to be guilty. So Jacob knows what he's doing.
Just get cash, dude. Don't play games with goats and sheep. What are you doing? But
they didn't have cash in those days. Wealth was measured by your livestock and by your crops and by your harem.
you know, when Jacob says, "Don't give me anything," he is totally getting everything. In short, he's saying, give me some of the sheep and lambs and goats, the ones you don't like because they're not white.
The speckled ones, who breed like rabbits, by the way.
I only want those. Agreed, said Laban. Let it be as you have said. That same day, he removed all the male goats that were streaked or spotted, and all the speckled or spotted female goats, all that had white on them, and all the dark-colored lambs, and he placed them in the care of his sons. Then he put a 3-day journey between himself and Jacob, while Jacob continued to tend the rest of Laban's flocks.
So he kept all of his spotted goats 3 days away so that Laban could not see what he was doing. You see? And if Laban asks him, he'll just say, well, mine are right over there. Yours are here being tended, and I'm here tending them just like I promised you I would. But every speckled goat, male and female, he put 3 days away in another camp and let his sons tend to them, which undoubtedly he taught them how to do what he knows how to do.
The off-white animals are now a 3 days distance away from Laban's white animals,
Yes.
which Jacob has to take care of.
Yes.
Sneaky. Laban gets free labor for his animals, which will keep getting stronger, while Jacob's animals are somewhere far away, maybe not even breeding. It looks like Jacob just got screwed over again. What will he do? I'll tell you. He's gonna get revenge using science that doesn't make any sense. Jacob, however, took fresh-cut branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees and made white stripes on them by peeling the bark and exposing the white inner wood of the branches. Then he placed the peeled branches in all the watering troughs so that they would be directly in front of the flocks when they came to drink. When the flocks were in heat and came to drink, they mated in front of the branches, and they bore young that were streaked, or speckled, or spotted. Jacob set apart the young of the flock by themselves, but made the rest face the streaked and dark-colored animals that belonged to Laban. Thus, he made separate flocks for himself, and did not put them with Laban's animals. Okay, this is where it gets weird. He took tree branches, ripped off some bark so the branches were brown with white stripes on them, then placed them in front of the animals when they mated in order for their kids to have stripes or spots on their bodies, making them off-white and therefore his property.
Now, I don't know exactly the science behind this or if it had anything to do with science. It may have been something God told him to do. But the branches that he used, he didn't just use any old branch, he used specific branches, and he peeled them in a certain way, which I'm guessing released something into the water somehow because he put the branches in the water, which altered the way the sheep mated. Or maybe he just did that so they would mate often because they drink often. I don't know exactly what's behind this, but I know that it worked. And as it worked, he kept culling these speckled and off-white babies and putting them in a separate place. But now we're talking about the white sheep that belonged to Laban. When they drank in this water and they mated, they had speckled babies, which he would cull and then return his sheep to him none the wiser as to what's going on, all the while building his flock exponentially. Now, I'm not exactly sure how this works because I'd have to look into what he did and the plants that he used and the reason he used them, but it may be just something God told him to do and he blessed it that way. I don't know. But it's not that weird. Weirder things are happening in the Bible. Believe that.
Part of me wants to congratulate ancient Gregor Mendel here for conducting his own genetic experiments, while the rest of me is screaming, that's not how it works.
Well, no, because he's not doing a genetic experiment. That's a straw man. It doesn't say how it works. And I guarantee you that if you talk to some people that have sheep, they may know. I haven't looked into it. There may be a special way to get sheep to breed, or it may be a way to alter the way their offspring look. I know that dogs can have several different offspring depending on who they've slept with, and they can save that semen inside of them for up to 7 years and have offspring from that father, even though they weren't siring it at that moment. So sheep may be similar to dogs in that manner. I don't know. All I know is that Jacob knew to do something that caused him to breed a lot and have speckled offspring. I don't know what that something is, and maybe the writer doesn't know. Maybe he's just reporting what he saw, and maybe those trees were just a fence so that Laban couldn't see them breeding. I don't know. It's worth looking into. It's a good study, but either way, the end result is all those pristine white sheep gave birth to speckled babies, and they rightfully belong to Jacob. On and on and on for the next few years, until Jacob had a greater flock than Laban did.
Why would a striped piece of wood near the animals have any effect on their offspring's genes?
Maybe you should
It
try
wouldn't. Any high school biology student with the Punnett square could tell you that.
Yes, if you're relating to genetics, but this may not have anything to do with genetics. It may have to do with preference. It may have to do with hypnotizing the sheep. I don't know. But it's not genetic. So stop arguing genetics.
I know the Bible gets evolution wrong, but who knew its attempts at genetics were...
Evolution gets evolution wrong, buddy. I can disprove evolution in one podcast. That's not hard to do. Just because you cling to it and believe in it for your religion does not make it true. Sorry, it's not true. The only kind of evolution that ever happens is natural selection. That's microevolution, not macro. You will never get a fish out of a dog. It will never happen, ever, or vice versa. You might get a dog with longer hair, or a taller dog, or a meaner dog, but you will never get a horse. It's not ever going to happen. Evolution is not true.
This misguided. And yet the Bible continues to double down on this striped branch theory. Whenever the stronger females were...
It said it once in the Bible. It's not doubling down on anything. You just don't understand what they're talking about. Neither do I, frankly. But I tend to trust what comes out of the Bible. So it would be worth looking into. Maybe you should get some sheep and get that particular plant and try it and see if it works. There's a thought.
In heat, Jacob would place the branches in the troughs in front of the animals so they would mate near the branches. But if the animals were weak, he would not place them there. So the weak animals went to Laban, and the strong ones to Jacob.
Now you see, this is genetics. You see, Jacob is choosing of the strong sheep and allowing the weak sheep to go back to Laban. He doesn't breed the weak ones. He breeds the strong ones so that they have strong offspring. Maybe he just understands how sheep work. It sounds to me like he does. And he's building a big, strong flock of sheep and making sure that Laban gets all the weak, feeble sheep. He's getting his revenge one way or another.
In this way, the man grew exceedingly prosperous and came to own large flocks and female and male servants and camels and donkeys. So Jacob only did his wood trick when strong animals were nearby.
Yes.
Which sounds clever until you realize the entire plan makes no sense. Anyway, Jacob supposedly learned how to breed animals like a champ, even though he really didn't. And by the end of this, he has created a little army of extra animals that are all his, unbeknownst to Laban, who thought Jacob was getting a crappy deal. So to recap, Jacob now has 4 wives, a truckload of babies, and a bunch of strong off-white camels and goats and sheep and lambs.
Yep. That is important, by the way. If you've ever spent any time over there, you'll know that those sheep and lambs run wild in the woods. Those off-white speckled ones, they're everywhere in that area. And they're still there to this day.
The Bible says he's blessed, but I am pretty sure he is cursed. What was all that for? To acquire more animals? Let's not forget that along the way, we kidnapped several slaves' kids, traded a plant for a night of sex, and learned incorrect biology.
And all of that is incorrect, by the way. You're wrong all the way around. And as I told you before, they did not have money in those days. They didn't use money. They used barley and wheat and animals, livestock. That's how you measured a man's wealth. What Jacob just done was made himself incredibly wealthy. He didn't have to do that, and he didn't do it at first. Laban is the one that took advantage of Jacob several times. Jacob is getting what's due him right now. It's well within his right. And he kept his promise. Not one of his sheep is pure white. Not one. That was the deal they made. It was Laban who didn't think through the details. It was Laban who didn't consider that sheep have babies, and that if he kept doing it, he would end up outbreeding him, which is what he did. And now he has a big flock. And Laban has a weak, feeble flock. And it's Laban's doing, not Jacob's. He should have let him go the first 7 years.
This is a family battle better suited for a daytime talk show.
But that's the way the cookie crumbles, you see. And sometimes you just got to get yours.
Genesis 31. There are gods everywhere. And one woman is about to tell the greatest lie ever. When we left off, Jacob had performed the worst science experiment in history in order to take more animals from Laban.
Well, it may have been the worst science project in history, but it worked. So, nah.
And now Laban's sons are furious about it. Jacob heard that Laban's sons were saying, "Jacob has taken everything our father owned and has gained all this wealth from what belonged to our father."
But it didn't belong to their father because their father made a deal, which he reneged on several times. And in the last, he made a final deal, all of which is rightfully Jacob's. Leave it to the children to start drama when they don't understand the full circle of what's going on. They shouldn't be talking in the first place. They're children. They should be seen and not heard.
And Jacob noticed that Laban's attitude toward him was not what it had been. Then the Lord said to Jacob, "Go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you." You know, usually if you rip someone off, they do get upset about it.
He didn't rip him off, though. Laban ripped Jacob off for 14 years and then some. He spent almost 20 years placating Laban. It's Jacob's time. He's earned it. And you shouldn't begrudge him for it.
And if you take some kid's future inheritance, they're gonna come after you. But at least God is giving him good advice. You've pissed everyone off. You should leave. Haven't you read my book? Everyone is always out for revenge. Get out while you can.
Well, that's a really crappy way to take this, and you're actually on the wrong side of this. You're looking at it through the eyes of Laban, who thinks he's been ripped off, who his kids have convinced him has been ripped off, because they want what Jacob has, because that's the way it always is. You'll help somebody till they get on their feet because you're genuinely wanting to help them philanthropically, until they start doing better than you, and then you start getting jealous. And then pretty soon you're going to hate them because they're doing better than you are. That's the nature of business. And it often ends in fighting because that's the nature of business.
What do you think will happen if you stay? That I'm going to protect you? Who am I? God? Oh, right. I like the idea that God will only be with him if he leaves.
That's not what he said. He's with him now. He said, if you get up and leave, I will go with you. I will be with you. He's not saying, I won't be with you if you don't. He's saying, I will be with you if you do. But it's Jacob's desire to leave. It has been for a long time.
God's love is so conditional, you need GPS to locate it. Even God doesn't want to stay anywhere near Laban and his crazy reproducing daughters if he can help it. So Jacob said,
well, that's wrong, because his crazy reproducing daughters will go with Jacob when he leaves. So clearly that's not correct. You're wrong all the way around, buddy.
Sent word to Rachel and Leah to come out to the fields where his flocks were. He said to them, I see that your father's attitude toward me is not what it was before, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I've worked for your father with all my strength, yet your father has cheated me by changing my wages 10 times.
10 times. Laban betrayed him, betrayed his trust, took advantage of him 10 times. Don't you think it's time he gets his?
However, God has not allowed him to harm me. If he said, the speckled ones will be your wages, then all the flocks gave birth to speckled young. And if he said, the streaked ones will be your wages, then all the flocks bore streaked young. So God has taken away your father's livestock and has given them to me.
Now you see, that right there just confirms my previous theory that God is the one causing the speckled babies to be born, not the tree thing. I'm assuming the tree thing was just a fence, or just a way to get the sheep in one place. Maybe sheep like stripy things. You ever consider that? Maybe he did that because it makes the sheep docile, and he can do with them what he pleases. Who knows why that was that way? But it wasn't genetic, and this just proves that God is the one that blessed him by causing the sheep to give birth to speckled babies. God took his flock away, not Jacob.
Laban changed his wages 10 times, and this idiot never figured out he was being screwed over.
He knew full well that he was being screwed over, but he did it because of the price. He did it because he wanted the wife. And he probably loved them all. He's probably been there long enough to fall in love with them all. He probably loves Laban. He's probably doing it out of a sense of loyalty or pride, something you may not know anything about.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me 7 more times after that, and I just might still let it slide, but fool me 10 times, and I will finally figure out what's going on here. Why?
Don't you know that from the very first time Jacob started formulating a plan, the reason all this worked in his favor is because he had a plan and he stuck to it.
Is God getting credit here? The last chapter literally spelled out the genetics project Jacob pulled off to get
Not genetic.
Speckled or streaked animals. In theory, that was DNA, not God. But really it was neither one, since the experiment made no sense. Anyway, let's hear more of Jacob's monologue.
By the way, why do you keep calling it an experiment? Jacob clearly knew this tactic. He's probably done it before. That's what being a good husbandman is to know your job well. It's not an experiment. It wasn't the first time he'd ever thought of it. He just did something the other guy didn't know about. That's all.
Because wives love it when their husband never shuts up. In breeding season, I once had a dream in which I looked up and saw that the male goats mating with the flock were streaked, speckled, or spotted. The angel of God said to me in the dream, "Jacob." I answered, "Here I am." And he said, "Look up and see that all the male goats mating with the flock are streaked, speckled, or spotted. For I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and where you made a vow to me. Now leave this land at once and go back to your native land."
You see, it was God that caused the speckled baby's birth, not Jacob. So the thing he did with the sticks had some other purpose, had nothing to do with them having babies.
I swear these people have the weirdest dreams. It's strange enough that these people think they're having conversations with God, but it's really weird how, when they're retelling those stories, they include the introductions. I have never started a story and been like, my friend said something incredible to me. She called and said hello, and I said hello. And she said, can you hear me? And I'm like, I can hear you just fine. And she says, I have something to say. And I said, all right. And she says, I kidnapped a puppy. No.
Write a book and tell me how you end up describing that same scenario. You see, this is a telling of a story in a book, which means that the book has a reader, and the reader has to understand the story, which is why it's written in the way it's written. It's a narrative. It's a book. That book has to be read and understood. Therefore, you have to know who's talking and who they're talking to and what they're talking about and why they're talking about it and where it's going to end up later.
No one needed to hear the first 90% of that story. Get to the damn point, Jacob. By the way, the story he's telling his wives isn't even what happened last chapter. What happened to the experiment? He's straight up lying to them. If God is...
No, he's not. It was not an experiment. It's just the way he did it. You're the one that added the experiment and the DNA stuff and the genetic stuff. You said that. The Bible never said that. Stop trying to put your theories on top of the things that the Bible says and then trying to contradict it. It's your mistake, not the Bible's.
The God of Bethel? What happened to the God of Abraham or the God of Isaac? How many gods are there that we need to distinguish them by location or person?
Go back to the beginning when it's talking about Jacob and find out where Jacob came from. Abraham. And you'll find out that they came from Bethel. You see?
Then Rachel and Leah replied, do we still have any share in the inheritance of our father's estate? Does he not regard us as foreigners? Not only has he sold us, but he has used up what was paid for us. Surely all the wealth that God took away from our father belongs to us and our children. So do whatever God has told you. I like how that makes it sound like they are speaking simultaneously. But talk about a dysfunctional family. Rachel and Leah know that their father has nothing left to give them, so they might as well run off with their rich husband.
Well, yeah. Also, they know that their father took advantage of him and then gave him the wrong wife and then gave him the right wife but took advantage of him more. They also know about the deal they made about the speckled cattle. They also know about how Laban keeps trying to convince Jacob to stay longer and longer and longer. They also know the desires of their husband's heart to go back into his land and build a nation. And these women are being loyal to their husband. They are following his dreams. That's what a good wife does. Has nothing to do with their father. They're just justifying it or rationalizing it amongst themselves. But they're going to follow their husband, which is what they should do. And he is rich now.
I'll put the baby-making rivalry aside to go with him. They're gonna need a bigger minivan. Then Jacob put his children and his wives on camels, and he drove all his livestock ahead of him, along with all the goods he had accumulated in Padan Aram, to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. That's gotta be a lot of camels. Anyone want to take a guess? Anyone? How old are all these children that they can sit comfortably on a camel? My kids can't sit in a car seat for more than 10 minutes. When Laban had gone to shear his sheep...
Well, consider they all traveled by camel in those days. I would imagine they'd know how to sit on a camel comfortably.
Rachel stole her father's household gods. Moreover, Jacob deceived Laban the Aramean by not telling him he was running away. So he fled with all he had, crossed the Euphrates River, and headed for the hill country of Gilead.
He probably did that because he knew if he told Laban, that Laban would just come up with some other excuse to keep him there longer, or God knows what he would do. So he did. He left in the middle of the night. But you see, Rachel, she did something that she shouldn't have done. She took false gods and hid them away and took them with her. She shouldn't have done that, and that's going to cause them some problems down the road, because our Father does not want any other gods before him, and he's made that clear. It's the first commandment, and she just broke it. So that's going to cause a little chink in the blessings there until it's figured out, until she repents.
I thought that said she stole the household goods. Nope, she stole the household gods.
Yep.
She stole the idols that he prayed to just to make him angry. And Jacob won't even tell Laban he's leaving, because whenever they have a conversation, it results in 7 years of hard labor, a new wife, a new slave wife, and a bunch of unwanted babies. Plus, Jacob stole all the animals.
None of that is true except for the first part. The babies are not unwanted, and Jacob stole absolutely nothing. He kept to his end of the bargain they struck. It's not Jacob's fault that the bargain worked out to be in his favor. That's called blessing.
On the third day, Laban was told that Jacob had fled. Taking his relatives with him, he pursued Jacob for 7 days and caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead. Then God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream at night and said to him, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." I guess a 3-day head start didn't matter for Jacob. Laban caught up in a week. That's what happens when you travel with kids. Everything just drags. And God's talking to Laban now? Is God a double agent here? What is God even saying?
He's saying, don't speak to Jacob. Don't say anything good or bad to Jacob, or you'll pay the price. Didn't you hear what he just said? He just said what he said.
Don't say anything to Jacob. Capture him and then just remain silent. Because that's not creepy at all. But Laban is going to say something. Whoops. Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country of Gilead when Laban overtook him, and Laban and his relatives camped there too. Then Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done? You've deceived me, and you've carried off my daughters like captives in war. Why did you run off secretly and deceive me? Why didn't you tell me so I could send you away with joy and singing to the music of timbrels and harps? You didn't even let me kiss my grandchildren and my daughters goodbye. You have done a foolish thing. I have the power to harm you. But last night the God of your fathers said to me, 'Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad.' Now you have gone off because you long to return to your father's household. But why did you steal my gods?" Does anyone believe this guy?
Keep in mind that Jacob does not know that Rachel has his gods, and of course he's going to defend his wife because he does not know she has them.
You ran away, you deceived me, you stole my daughters, and all I wanted to do was sing and play the harp for you. Sure, Laban, sure. And how would Jacob have stolen the daughters anyway? Laban gave them to him in exchange for work, just like he handed over 2 other women just for the hell of it.
You question, yet you already know the answer. Jacob is within his right to do everything he's done. It sucks for Laban, but it's not his right.
You can't be mad when someone takes what you're giving them. Why does Laban refer to the God of your father?
Because he doesn't believe in God. He believes in his little false idols, which is one reason God doesn't want Jacob there. Because God wants him to be in a land that worships him, not in a land that worships little sticks and false idols.
Wouldn't that God be Laban's God too? That's like referring to your spouse as your first wife. Like, you didn't need to say that part, but now she's gonna have other questions.
Well, how do you refer to God, Mr. Atheist? Don't you say he doesn't exist? That's about as silly as what Laban is saying, because he most certainly does exist, and he most certainly is your God. Just because he is, though, does not mean you believe that. Neither does it mean that for Laban.
And look at Laban blaming Jacob for Rachel stealing the gods. How many idols did she take that...
A handful, but see, Jacob doesn't know she took them, and Laban doesn't know Jacob doesn't know.
Jacob noticed them all missing. Jacob answered Laban, "I was afraid, because I thought you would take your daughters away from me by force. But if you find anyone who has your gods, that person shall not live. In the presence of our relatives, see for yourself whether there is anything of yours here with me, and if so, take it." Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the gods. Holy crap! Jacob just sentenced one of his wives to death without even realizing it.
Yep. Let's see how that works out.
All over a bunch of tiny little god statues. So Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the tent of the 2 female servants. But he found nothing. After he came out of Leah's tent, he entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them inside her camel's saddle, and was sitting on them. Laban searched through everything in the tent, but found nothing. They're playing keep away. The Bible is literally describing a game of keep away. Look at how the Bible writers are building up the tension before what I assume is a death scene. He went to wife 2, nothing. He went to slave 1, nothing. He went to slave 2, nothing. Then he went to wife 1. What's going to happen?
Now, this is his daughter who stole from him, and it's in her interest to keep it hidden because she doesn't want to get caught. I don't know if she heard what Jacob had said or not. I don't know if she knows that her life is on the line or not, but she doesn't want her father to know that she stole from him.
I can't believe Rachel's only chance of avoiding death is sitting on God's face. Yup, that's a thing that is in the Bible.
Yes, it is, but it's not God's face. It's a false God's face.
But now you are about to hear the greatest lie ever told. Rachel said to her father, "Don't be angry, my lord, that I cannot stand up in your presence. I'm having my period." So he searched, but could not find the household gods.
Leave it to a woman to blame that time of the month for her own indiscretions. It happens more often than you think. They also claim to be pregnant sometimes when they're not. Not all women tell the truth. You should not believe all women just because they spoke something. They are just as capable of lying as a man is. And in this case, she is telling a bald-faced lie and playing on his sympathies to keep that lie hidden.
She avoided death by saying it's that time of the month, so don't come near me, and Laban stayed the hell away from her.
Yeah, because in those days, they didn't have maxi pads or cleanliness products, and it was considered unclean for a woman to be on her period, which is why they would have to go sit in the river for 3 hours when they did have their period, or they would have to sit on a pot during the day. That's how they did it in those days. It sucked. But it sucked a lot worse back then.
The Bible actually takes this very seriously. Leviticus chapter 15 includes a section on how you cannot touch women who are on their periods. And verse 20 specifically says anything she lies on during her period will be unclean. And
unclean is a very specific statement. It's not just dirty, it's unclean spiritually, because it involves the blood, and the life is in the blood. You see, we may not be doing it right now. They certainly couldn't do it right back then.
anything she sits on will be unclean. So sitting on something and pretending you're on your period is actually a really foolproof way to hide something. If Eve just sat on the damn piece of fruit, we wouldn't even be here right now.
That's correct. Think about that for a minute.
Jacob was angry and took Laban to task. "What is my crime?" he asked Laban. "How have I wronged you that you hunt me down? Now that you have searched through all my goods, what have you found that belongs to your household? Put it here in front of your relatives and mine, and let them judge between the two of us." I can't believe they are all fighting over a bunch of G.I. Joe figurines.
Well, they're called gods for a reason, and Laban clearly believes in his gods, so they mean a great deal. Think about what people have done in the name of Christianity. That's probably why God doesn't like it when you have false gods, because of the lengths you will go to in their names, and they don't even exist. They're fake.
But now Jacob is unleashed and he is ready to deliver the rant of his life. "I have been with you for 20 years now. Your sheep and goats have not miscarried, nor have I eaten rams from your flocks. I did not bring you animals torn by wild beasts. I bore the loss myself, and you demanded payment from me for whatever was stolen by day or night. This was my situation. The heat consumed me in the daytime, and the cold at night, and sleep fled from my eyes. It was like this for the 20 years I was in your household. I worked for you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flocks, and you changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been with me, you would surely have sent me away empty-handed. But God has seen my hardship and the toil of my hands. And last night he rebuked you." It's the kids. The stress of having all those kids is finally catching up to him, and he's losing it.
He's not losing it. He's saying exactly the right thing. Everything he just said is true. Jacob is an honorable man, not a bad man. You've got the wrong side here, as usual. Your kind often does take the wrong side. But you see, Jacob did everything he was supposed to do, and he did it with honor. And everything he has is rightfully his, except for those false gods which he does not know about. He will find out, but he doesn't know right now.
Laban answered Jacob, "The women are my daughters, the children are my children, and the flocks are my flocks. All you see is mine. Yet what can I do today about these daughters of mine, or about the children they have borne? Come now, let's make a covenant, you and I, and let it serve as a witness between us." We have to talk about this. Laban gave his daughters to Jacob in exchange for labor. Rachel and Leah had a baby-making competition. The animals were the result of weird science. None of this is Laban's. Not anymore.
Right. So Laban is in the wrong here. He's asking for something that does not belong to him. He's being greedy. He's trying to have his cake and eat it too. He's given up these things. And Jacob did the work, which makes those things rightfully his, not Laban's.
But he is claiming all of it. Still, that is toxic masculinity, right?
No, it's not. It is greed. There is no such thing as toxic masculinity. Masculinity is what built this world you live in. It's what affords you the comfort you have. And if your kind manages to destroy masculinity, which it's doing a good job of, the things you have will cease to exist because you certainly can't make it.
What sort of agreement are they gonna make now? I kinda want Laban to say, fine, you can keep everything, but you're gonna have to work for me for another 20 years. Only because Jacob would be dumb enough to fall for it. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. He said to his relatives, "Gather some stones." So they took stones and piled them in a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jegar-Sahadutha, and Jacob called it Galeed. What is up with Jacob and pillars? And why do their makeshift altars need different names?
Because that's the way they did things in those days. You name something so you know where it's at and you know what happened there. Simple.
And why is one name so much more complicated than the other?
Different languages. That's why. You see, Jacob is from Canaan and Laban is from another place. They're not the same people. They have different languages, they have different belief systems, they have different gods. All this is spelled out for you. I don't know why you can't see it.
Laban said, "This heap is a witness between you and me today." That's why it was called Gilead. It was also called Mizpah, because he said, "May the Lord keep watch between you and me when we are away from each other. If you mistreat my daughters, or if you take any wives besides my daughters, even though no one is with us, remember that God is a witness between you and me."
And Jacob will honor yet another agreement with Laban.
Yeah, see this pile of stones? It'll keep us honest. Look at Laban saying, "Don't take any more wives. 4 is enough. But 5? Come on now, that's excessive." Laban also said to Jacob, "Here is this heap, and here is this pillar I have set up between you and me. This heap is a witness, and this pillar is a witness that I will not go past this heap to your side to harm you, and that you will not go past this heap and pillar to my side to harm me. May the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us."
Now you see, they've made a makeshift border. That's the reason for the pillar, so that you could come up on it and see it. This is the border. You don't cross it. You stay on your side, I stay on my side. Never the twain shall meet. Everybody goes home happy. Nobody has to be in war. That's why they're doing this. It's a border, not just a pillar. And the names are significant as to what happened there, and to remind people of what happened there, so that further generations down the line will know not to cross that border.
So Jacob took an oath in the name of the fear of his father Isaac. He offered a sacrifice there in the hill country and invited his relatives to a meal. After they had eaten, they spent the night there. They are both swearing oaths on a pile of crap they found lying around. And did they just mention like 3 different gods who are watching and judging them?
Same God, 3 different locations.
I wonder which one did creation. For all that,
That God, the one that they're talking about.
a goat had to die. Because what's a promise that doesn't involve murder?
You ever heard that old expression, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil"? Remember that? Well, what's the valley of the shadow of death? It's where you take a goat and cut it down the middle and separate it. And the blood falls in the middle, and the 2 halves are on either side of this blood avenue, and then you walk through it. This is a Hebrew blood covenant. This is a ritual that they did in those days to make a very severe promise to one another. It was replaced with the covenant of cutting the hand and packing it with ashes so that you would have a tattoo that would remind you of the promise you made. That's the later Hebrew blood covenant, but this is the original one, and that's what they're doing here. They're sacrificing a goat over an oath. This is how it was done in those days, because the blood meant something, because the life is in the blood, and everyone acknowledged that in those days. So this is the biggest, most prominent promise you can make on earth between men. And they've made it. They've made a promise, a covenant with each other, that neither one will cross this border and neither one will go warring after the other, and they'll live in peace on their side of this border.
Early the next morning, Laban kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them. Then he left and returned home. You know what we haven't heard? Whether Rachel's gotten up off her saddle yet.
She has not, because she doesn't want him to know she has those false gods.
I think the Bible has finally made it clear there is no one God. There are many gods for different people, and tiny little idol gods too. And if you see a rock, that can be a god you pray to as well.
The Bible made that clear in the first pages of the Bible. God is a jealous God. He will have no other God before him. Why is he jealous? Because those other gods exist in man's mind, and they cause people to do things. It's very important that you know the difference between our real God and all the little fake gods.
If everything is a god, then nothing is a god. But here's where it gets interesting. The only reason Jacob spent the past 20 plus years with Laban is because he was running away from his hairy brother Esau, who was out for revenge. And now Jacob is returning home.
Yep.
Does Esau still hold a grudge?
They'll find out when they come together.
And will he try to kill him? We will find out very soon.
Okay, that's that. Please take a moment and press that like button and subscribe and press the bell icon so you'll get notifications of when I'm going to be here. Share this video. Put it out there in the world. Let's build this ministry. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you're thinking about. Curse me, bless me, challenge me, agree with me, whatever you want to do. But if you really think that we've helped you and you would like for us to continue helping you, please, I implore you, go to paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand. Every little bit helps, especially at this time in my life. And it's a win-win. It's a write-off for you. It's a benefit for me. We can keep doing this thing. It's a win-win-win. So I do appreciate it. And now I will take any questions or comments. Oh, what's happening, guys? Did y'all enjoy that? I hope you did. Let me go back and see if I missed anything. You get him, Jake. This guy is hilarious. Wow, whatever. I don't think it's hilarious, moron. Okay, so I guess you're calling me a moron. Thanks. I don't think that's what you meant, but it's possible. Wow. Remember, she is wearing a trash bag right now. She's sitting on a camel pouch, if you get my drift. It's Mother Nature, and she's a bitch. So look over that one. How are you guys doing? I'm exhausted, but I'm holding her together. Darlene, did you leave me already, or are you still here? Kev, what's been going on in your world, buddy? I hadn't talked to you in a while. April, don't worry. Be happy. Everything gonna be alright. Don't worry. Wow. What'd y'all think about that session? Hey, this guy, he trips me out, man. Just finishing working outside with a cigar sitting by a fire. That sounds like a great place to be right now. I'm going to be having a bonfire at my house for a few days here in the coming week. I got lots of limbs to burn and lots of furniture and everything else. I'm here, but I got to lay down, pills kicking in. Oh, that sounds nice. Well, I love you and thank you so much for being here with us. I wish I could just sit by your bedside and give you big old hugs, and I would if I was there. I want you to know that I've been thinking about you a lot. I miss you and I love you, and God's going to see you through this thing. You got lots of people praying for you, pulling for you. You are not going through this by yourself. We are all here and we all love you. And enjoy them pills. They do tend to make it a little more tolerable. Good. I'm glad to hear it. Tomorrow's going to be a special day. We're going to get cracking on the book of Luke. I think we're almost through with Mark. I think we might have finished Mark, did we? I can't remember. My brain ain't working right. Anyway, I think we got into the book of Luke a little ways. Yeah, I think that's where we are. And Luke is a very good writer. He's very fast and very vapid and very detailed. It's going to be fun. I remember enjoying what little bit I read, so it's going to be a special day, and I'm going to put it to it. Cool Hand Luke. That's right. Yeah, but this guy, he amazes me, man. He pretends in a hyperbolic way to not understand what he's reading. Like he's looking at it like a 13-year-old skater, you know. But then he tells you exactly the truth after he shits on it. And then he stands by his original criticism when he sees the truth. I don't understand how you can see the truth and not understand it and not believe it. Good night, Darlene. I love you. Sleep tight and rest easy. Are you leaving too, April? I love you too. Luke was a doctor and he also wrote the book of Acts. Yep. And you love both of them. Yeah, I like Acts also. I don't know if he was a doctor, but he definitely had medical knowledge. He wrote in a medical way. He used a lot of medical terms. So I'm guessing he was a doctor, or maybe he was just a guy in the village that knew the doctory stuff. So it was upon him to learn as much as he could. I don't know which, but I don't know if it's ever made clear that he's a doctor or not, but he definitely understood doctor stuff. He definitely studied Herodotus and guys like him. I know it tripped some people out when we were in the book of Mark, and I said that Mark was a teenager, and I had a couple people question me about that, but he was a teenager at that time. And his mother's house is where the disciples would congregate and plan out their trips or whatever. She was like a groupie or whatever you want to call her. And because he was there, he picked up on a lot of it. But most people think Mark was a disciple, but he was not. He was just there, and he wrote down a lot of stuff. He was a Georgia Bulldog fan, that's right. I'm a Georgia Bulldog fan, and I don't even watch football. But I am from Georgia. Man, I feel like I called Mike Tyson a sissy. I've been cutting grass all day today over at my house. Grass up to my knees with a push mower. 2 acres of land. It's a lot of grass cutting. Toting limbs and cleaning and trying to get ready to move back in. I found out that my floor in my kitchen and my living room have caved in, so I've got to replace all the flooring in there. That's going to be fun. Before I can move in. Or I might just build an apartment out of the back room, because there's a half bath back there. I might just move everything into that room and just work out of that room and do one room at a time until I finish. I may do it that way. I hadn't decided yet. Depends on how tomorrow goes. Tomorrow the inspector is coming, so we'll see what he says. If he don't condemn the place and allows me to get my power cut back on, I may just do it that way. Either way, I'm aiming to go home pretty soon. It's time. And circumstances are so that I need to, but it's kind of pushing me in the direction of doing it, which I've been avoiding doing because of feelings and just not being the right time and all that good stuff. I really never knew who Mark was. He is only named for writing the book of Mark. Matthew and John were both disciples, correct. Mark was just a teenager that happened to be in the vicinity, and he took a great deal of interest in what they were doing. So he wrote his own little memoirs, and he was a good writer, so they probably used him as a scribe. And for that reason, he probably followed them around everywhere they went. And also because they were friends of his mother and his mother's mother. Now, how they knew each other, I don't know. Maybe they were family friends, or maybe they grew up next to each other. Not really sure how that worked out, but and it doesn't really go into a lot of detail about Mark's mother. She's the one who poured the ointment on Jesus' head. That was Mark's mom, and it was at her house. And her mother was sick, and Jesus healed her. And because he healed her, she anointed him. And then everybody got pissy because they thought that was a wasted product. They could sell that at the market and make a lot of money. And Jesus said, don't begrudge her. She did a good thing. She's anointing me and preparing me for my deathbed, which they didn't understand at the time. They heard him say it, but it didn't register. They didn't get it. But yeah, Mark was just a young buck. And I don't think he was ever technically named a disciple. I don't recall ever reading that. But a lot of people think Matthew, Mark, Luke, John were disciples. There were 12 disciples, and a few of them were never even heard from. We don't have the book of Bartholomew. Or any of the other strange named disciples. I do think that's kind of interesting, but it also kind of makes it human, makes it look like it really occurred, which it did. Yep, Mark's mom. I don't know if that's in the Bible. I think I read that in some other book somewhere. You know, a historical book. It also stands to reason, since that's where Mark lived. It's also where she lived, so it's reasonable. Mom or aunt or something like that. Lost you for a moment. I am back. I never went anywhere. I'm glad you're back. Yeah, the internet can be tricky these days. I think they're cutting it on and off at random sometimes. Just screwing with people. But I'm glad you're here. I enjoy the conversation. Georgia won. Dolphins won. Bucks came close. Well, you can't have it all. Yep, you can't have it all. I think it's raining outside. I just heard a truck go by and it sounded like the road was wet. I'm glad I got all the grass cut today. I don't have to cut no wet grass. Yes, you can have it all. Well, I'm glad you can, because I sure can't. I can't even have some of it. Surviving by the skin of my teeth. I'd like to have it all. But to whom much is given, much is required. I should be Spider-Man. Well, he hadn't lost yet. He still has a shot in the Supreme Court. but it's a long shot. And he may very well have lost, but he hadn't technically lost yet. There's like a snowball's chance in hell that he might win. And actually, here's the truth of the matter. The best thing that can happen to the Democrats right now is Trump winning. And the reason for that is because the only thing that holds them together is their hatred for Trump. When he's no longer in the picture, they're going to scatter like wildfire, and it's going to destroy the party. The progressives will take over, and nobody likes Biden. They're already starting to go against him and backbite on him. So Biden's presidency is not going to be a fun one for Biden if he wins. The best thing that can happen for all parties involved is if Trump wins. Because if he loses, the media is going away, the Democrats are going away, and he'll be back in the White House in 2024, God willing. But they're going to suffer a great loss if he goes. Well, he calls himself a progressive, but he's doing the same thing Obama did, which is war. He's not progressive. He's a warmonger. But he's pulled himself to the progressive ticket so that he could get their votes. And that's probably the only reason he won. Nobody voted for Biden. They all voted against Trump. And nobody likes Biden, not even his own people. Mark my words, they will attack him the moment he gets in office, and they will keep attacking him the whole way through. Nothing he does will be right. And it'll be division of the highest order. And the Democrats will fall apart because they don't have anything unifying them anymore. Yeah, he has said that. Yeah, I'm preparing to buy extra toilet paper. I'm just trying to get my generator fixed. That way I'll have some power when he shuts the grid down. Yeah, he's bad news, man. I don't know what he's going to do, but it's not going to be pretty for us. We're going to have a tough 4 years if he wins. But mark my words, he won't win a second term. Now, we may end up getting Camilla as president because he may die or she may kill him, one. And if that's the case, she may not leave the office. She may change enough laws that she can keep it. But he won't run a second term. It says there are 4 people in the podcast. Who else is here? I don't know. Mine says 3. And that would be April, you, and Darlene. And though they're no longer here, they might still be logged in. I don't really know. He's already dead. Look at him. I agree. If you're here and I don't know who you are, speak up because we're curious. You don't have to join the conversation if you don't want to. Just say hello. I imagine it's Darlene and April. Well, it's 10 o'clock. It's time for me to eat some chicken and go to bed. I got a long day ahead of me. I got a lot of work to do at the house tomorrow. I've enjoyed it immensely, and I will see you guys tomorrow at 8:30 with the Book of Luke. I love you. Thank you for hanging out with me. Be sure to press all the buttons and go all the places. Oh, you got tacos. Sweet. And go to paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand if you feel like supporting a feller. And I will see you guys on a Monday. Have a great night. I love you. Peace out.